Admiral Lee Jun stood on the bridge of the human flagship Soul's Pride, watching the massive space station grow larger through the viewport. The Galactic Council's headquarters was bigger than any human city, a gleaming metal world that housed representatives from 47 different alien species. First contact protocol is active, Admiral, reported Captain Park Wu from his position at the navigation controls. The young pilot's hands moved quickly across the console, keeping their small fleet in perfect formation. All ships are ready. Dr. Kim Hana joined them at the front of the bridge, her diplomatic case in hand. As humanity's chief negotiator, she had spent months preparing for this moment. "Remember, we're here to make friends, not enemies," she said quietly. "The galaxy has been peaceful for 3,000 years. They must be doing something right." Lee Jun nodded, but something felt wrong. In his 30 years of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts. The aliens had been polite when they first contacted Earth, but there was something cold about their messages. They spoke like teachers talking to children, not equals meeting equals. The docking process took 2 hours. Human ships were small compared to the alien vessels, and their technology was different. Where alien ships were smooth and curved, human ships had sharp angles and visible weapons. Where alien ships glowed with soft light, human ships were built for war. When they finally boarded the station, Lee Jun was surprised by what he saw. The corridors were empty except for floating robots that guided them silently through endless hallways. Everything was clean and perfect, but it felt dead. There were no sounds of conversation, no laughter, no signs of real life. "Where is everyone?" Park Wu whispered. "Quiet," Kim Hana warned. "We're being watched." They were led to a vast circular chamber where 47 aliens sat in raised seats around the edges. Each species looked different, but they all sat perfectly still, watching the humans with cold eyes. At the center of the room stood the tallest alien Lee Jun had ever seen. It was thin and white with no visible mouth or nose. When it spoke, its voice came from speakers around the room. "I am High Arbiter Quinlos," the creature said. "You are the humans from the third planet of the Sol system. You have achieved faster-than-light travel and now seek to join galactic civilization." Lee Jun stepped forward. "That's correct. I'm Admiral Lee Jun, representing the United Earth Federation. We're honored to meet you." "Honor is irrelevant," Quinlos replied. "What matters is order. For 3,000 years, the galaxy has known peace because all species follow the sacred codex. These are the laws that govern all civilized life." A floating platform approached the humans. On it sat a massive book, easily 10,000 pages thick. The pages glowed with alien writing that hurt to look at directly. Kim Hana opened her diplomatic case and pulled out a translation device. "We'd be happy to study your laws and see how we can work together." "You misunderstand," said another alien, this one with purple skin and 6 arms. "I am Counselor Veltar of the Zenthari Empire. The Codex is not a suggestion. It is absolute law. Every species that joins the galaxy must follow every rule without question or change." Lee Jun felt his stomach tighten. "Without question? What if a law doesn't work for our species?" The chamber fell silent. Several aliens made sounds that might have been gasps. Veltar's 6 arms twitched with what looked like anger. "Laws do not work," Quinlos said slowly. "The Codex has maintained peace for 3 millennia. It covers every possible situation, every proper response, every acceptable behavior. There is no situation it does not address." Park Wu couldn't help himself. "But what if a new situation comes up? What if we discover something new?" More silence. This time, several aliens stood up from their seats. Their body language was clear even across species barriers. They were shocked and offended. "New situations do not arise," Veltar said coldly. "The Codex is complete. It was written by the first galactic civilization and has never needed change. To suggest otherwise is primitive thinking." Kim Hana tried to smooth things over. "We don't mean to offend. On Earth, we've found that laws sometimes need to be updated as we learn and grow. Surely you've had to make some adjustments over 3,000 years." "Never," Quinlos said firmly. "Growth beyond the Codex is chaos. Change beyond the Codex is destruction. This is why your species is dangerous. You think you can improve upon perfection." Lee Jun's military training kicked in. He could see this was going badly, but retreat wasn't an option. "We're not trying to improve anything. We just want to understand how we fit in." "You fit in by following every law exactly as written," Veltar said. "Your ships will be redesigned to match approved patterns. Your government will adopt the approved structure. Your citizens will learn approved behaviors. Your technology will be limited to approved levels. Your culture will be corrected. The word corrected hung in the air like a threat. Park Woo stepped closer to his admiral. Sir, they're talking about changing everything that makes us human. We heard, Li Jun said quietly. Then louder, and if we refuse? Then you remain in your primitive system and never leave it again, Quinlo said. The galaxy has no place for chaos. You will follow the Codex completely, or you will be isolated forever. Kim Hana looked down at the massive book of laws, 10,000 pages of rules covering every aspect of life, written by aliens who died before humans learned to make fire. Rules that could never be changed, never be questioned, never be improved. How long do we have to decide? She asked. You have already decided, Veltar said with satisfaction. All species choose the same way. Civilization over chaos, order over destruction. You will return to your world and begin the correction process immediately. Li Jun looked around the chamber at 47 alien species, all sitting in perfect silence, all following rules written thousands of years ago. He thought about Earth, with its noisy cities and endless arguments and constant changes. He thought about humans arguing in council meetings, inventing new technologies, writing new laws when old ones didn't work. No, he said simply. The chamber erupted. Aliens made sounds of shock and anger. Several stood up so quickly they knocked over their chairs. Veltar's 6 arms waved frantically. No? Quinlos's voice was cold as space. You choose chaos? We choose freedom, Li Jun replied. We choose the right to make our own mistakes and find our own solutions. We choose to grow. Kim Hana stepped beside him. We thank you for the offer, but we'll find our own way. Park Woo grinned and moved to their other side. Besides, rules that never change aren't laws. They're chains. The 3 humans turned and walked toward the exit. Behind them, Veltar's voice rose to a shriek. You will regret this. The galaxy will not tolerate your chaos. You will be alone forever. As they reached the doorway, Li Jun paused and looked back at the silent, still aliens in their perfect chamber. We've been alone in the galaxy for our entire history, he said calmly. We've gotten pretty good at it. They left the Galactic Council behind and returned to their ships. As the human fleet undocked and headed back toward empty space, Kim Hana shook her head. Well, that went badly. Did it? Li Jun asked. We came here to meet galactic civilization. Turns out galactic civilization died 3,000 years ago. What we met were its corpses, still following the last orders they were given. Park Woo laughed as he piloted them away from the massive station. So what do we do now, Admiral? Li Jun watched the stars ahead of them and smiled. Now? Now we show them what living civilization looks like. 6 months after the disaster at the Galactic Council, the human space station New Sol floated in the neutral zone between star systems. It wasn't much to look at compared to the massive alien stations, but it was bustling with activity. Ships came and went constantly, and the corridors echoed with voices speaking dozens of languages. Engineer Choi Dana stood in her workshop, surrounded by pieces of alien technology that made no sense according to the sacred codex. The codex said Zenthari engines couldn't work with Velkari power cells. The codex said Morden computers couldn't interface with Kethran sensors. The codex said a lot of things that turned out to be wrong. Hand me that plasma coupling, she called to her assistant, a young Zenthari named Kextar, who had left his homeworld after hearing about the humans. The codex says this combination will cause an explosion, Kextar warned, but he handed her the part anyway. The codex also says your people can't eat Velkari food, but I saw you having lunch with that Velkari traitor yesterday, Dana replied, connecting the coupling to a human-made adapter. How did that work out? Kextar's tentacles curled in what Dana had learned was Zenthari embarrassment. It was actually quite good, better than our traditional food. Funny how things work when you actually try them instead of just following old rules, Dana said. The engine hummed to life, running smoother than any pure-breed design. There, faster, more efficient, and it didn't explode. Meanwhile, in the station's main conference room, Dr. Kim Hana was meeting with representatives from 6 different species. None of them were supposed to be there according to their governments, but they had come anyway. The Codex forbids direct technology transfer, said Commander Yexley, a tall, blue-skinned Kethran, but it says nothing about educational exchanges. Kim Hana smiled. Humans had become experts at finding the gaps in the Codex. the places where ancient laws didn't quite cover modern situations. So if a Kethran engineer happened to be studying human farming techniques, and a human engineer happened to be learning about Kethran water purification, pure coincidence if they happened to combine their knowledge, finished Dr. Morvan, a furry Velkari scientist. The Codex cannot forbid learning. Our worlds are prospering from these coincidences, added Captain Zultam of the Morden fleet. Crop yields are up 30%. Water is cleaner than it's been in centuries. Our people are healthier and happier. But not everyone was happy. In the depths of space, a Galactic Council patrol ship received an urgent message. Counselor Veltar's voice crackled over the communication system. Pirates are attacking Colony Zentara. All ships respond immediately according to Protocol 7. The captain of the patrol ship, a disciplined Kethran named Kelmos, checked his orders. Protocol 7 was clear: return to base, file a complete report, wait for council authorization, then dispatch a response fleet with proper documentation and approved weapons. Sir, his second officer said nervously, the colony is asking for immediate help. They say the pirates will destroy everything if we don't act now. The Codex is clear, Kelmos replied firmly. We follow Protocol 7. Always. It took 3 days to complete Protocol 7. When the official Galactic Council fleet finally arrived at Colony Zentara, they found burned buildings and empty warehouses. The pirates had taken everything valuable and killed dozens of civilians. The survivors looked at their rescuers with hollow eyes. Where were you? Asked the colony leader, an elderly Zenthari named Meltin. We called for help 3 days ago. We followed proper procedure, the fleet commander replied stiffly. Protocol 7 ensures that all responses are measured and appropriate. But halfway across the system, another communication had been sent. Captain Park Wu received the distress call while patrolling near human space in his fast attack ship, the Soul's Fury. Pirates hitting Colony Zentara, his communication officer reported. Zenthari colony, not our responsibility according to the Codex. Park Wu was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled the way he always did before doing something crazy. Good thing we don't follow the Codex. All ships maximum speed. We're going to help some neighbors. The human response was everything the Galactic Council's wasn't. No protocols, no paperwork, no waiting for authorization. Park Wu's squadron arrived at the colony 6 hours after the distress call. They found 3 pirate ships looting the warehouses while colonists hid in their homes. The pirates had never fought humans before. They were used to Galactic Council ships that announced themselves, demanded formal surrender, and followed predictable attack patterns. Park Wu's ships came out of nowhere, hit from 3 directions at once, and used tactics that weren't in any military manual. Surrender immediately or be destroyed, the pirate leader broadcast. Following the traditional script, counteroffer, Park Wu replied cheerfully. Leave now and we won't turn your ships into scrap metal. The pirates, confident in their superiority, chose to fight. It was a mistake. Human fighters moved like angry insects, fast and unpredictable. They used the colony's buildings for cover, something the Codex said was forbidden because it might damage civilian property. They targeted the pirates' engines instead of their weapons, disabling them instead of destroying them. They worked together without formal communication, each pilot seeming to know what the others would do. The fight lasted 20 minutes. All 3 pirate ships were captured, their crews arrested, and their stolen goods returned to the colonists. Not a single human ship was lost, and the only damage to the colony was 1 broken window. How? Asked Melton, staring at the human ships. How did you respond so quickly? How did you know to come? Someone called for help, Park Wu said simply. So we helped, but we're not allied. We have no treaties, no trade agreements, no formal relationship at all. Park Wu looked confused. So you needed help. We could provide it. What else matters? Within hours, the story was spreading across the colony worlds. The humans had saved Zentara while the Galactic Council followed procedure. The humans had asked for nothing in return, claimed no territory, demanded no payment. They had simply helped because help was needed. On New Sol, Admiral Li Jun received reports of other changes happening across the galaxy. On the Velkari homeworld, young artists were creating new forms of art that the Codex didn't specifically forbid. On Morden world, scientists were asking questions that had never been asked before. On Zenthari colonies, people were forming new types of communities that didn't fit the traditional patterns. The council is calling it contamination, reported Dr. Kim Hana. They say human ideas are spreading like a disease. Maybe they are, Lee Jun replied, watching a mixed group of humans and aliens working together in the station's main corridor. A Kethran child was teaching a human child a simple game, while their parents discussed business in a mixture of 3 languages. Maybe questioning authority is contagious. Maybe thinking for yourself spreads from person to person. The council won't let this continue, warned Commander Yang Tae, the station's security chief. They're already talking about containment protocols. Lee Jun nodded grimly. He had been expecting this. Then we'd better make sure we spread as far as possible before they try to stop us. In his private chamber on the Galactic Council station, High Arbiter Quinlos studied reports from across the galaxy. Productivity was up on worlds that traded with humans. Crime was down in systems where human ships patrolled. Happiness surveys showed improvement on planets where human ideas had taken root. All of this was unacceptable. The humans are a virus, he told the assembled council. They infect other species with their chaos. They must be contained before they destroy everything we have built. Councillor Veltar's 6 arms waved excitedly. We should destroy them now while they're still weak. No, Quinlos said slowly. First, we will isolate them. Cut off their trade. Forbid contact. Show the galaxy what happens to those who abandon order. His voice grew cold. Then, if they still refuse to submit, we will have no choice but to eliminate the contamination entirely. On New Sol, the humans continued their work, unaware that the galaxy's oldest civilization had just declared war on the idea of change itself. Ambassador Yunbin had never expected to be making a speech that could start a war. She stood in the rebuilt council chamber of New Sol, looking out at representatives from 23 different species. Some had come openly, defying their governments. Others had arrived in secret, their ships disguised as cargo vessels. All of them had one thing in common. They were tired of following rules that served no one. The Galactic Council has given us an ultimatum, she announced. Stop trading with humans, stop adopting human ideas, and return to the Sacred Codex, or face total isolation from galactic civilization. A Velkari merchant named Torvin stood up, his fur bristling with anger. My people have prospered more in the last year than in the previous century. Our art is flourishing. Our children are learning to dream beyond the old limits. And now the council wants us to give all that up? The Zenthari homeworld sent a formal protest, added Kex Mora, a rebel leader who had escaped from her planet in a stolen ship. They say our colonies are becoming corrupted by human ideas. They want to bring us back for correction. Yunbin nodded grimly. She had seen the reports. Across the galaxy, species were beginning to question the Codex for the first time in 3,000 years. The Morden had stopped sending their young people to die in the sacred trials, ancient ritual combats that served no purpose except tradition. The Kethran had begun modifying their technology instead of only using approved designs. The Velkari had declared that art couldn't be regulated by law. What's happening on your homeworld? She asked a young Zenthari engineer named Vilpak. Revolution, he said simply. The older generation follows the Codex, but the young people are asking questions. Why can't we design new buildings? Why can't we form friendships with other species? Why can't we choose our own careers instead of being assigned them by the council? He looked around the room. Some of us are calling it the human question, not what does the law say, but what is the right thing to do? Dr. Lim So, the human physicist who had helped design New Sol, smiled at that. It's not really a human question. It's just the question, the one every thinking being should ask. But not everyone was asking it by choice. On the Galactic Council station, High Arbiter Quinlos was implementing Emergency Protocol 12. The last time it had been used was 1,500 years ago, when a solar flare had disrupted communication across 3 systems. All trade with human-influenced worlds is hereby forbidden, he announced to the assembled council. All cultural exchange is terminated. All technological cooperation is ended. Species that continue to associate with humans will be expelled from galactic civilization. Councillor Veldtar was practically vibrating with satisfaction. Finally, order will be restored. But the order they expected didn't come. Instead, something unprecedented happened. 12 species publicly refused to comply. The Velkari ambassador stood up in the council chamber and threw her formal robes on the floor. "We reject your authority," she declared. "We choose friendship over fear." The Morden representative was next. "Our people will not return to the old ways. We have seen a better path." One by one, species that had followed the Codex for millennia walked out of the council chamber. They didn't declare war or make threats. They simply left, choosing to stand with the humans and each other rather than submit to laws that no longer served them. On the military front, things were heating up as well. General Song Mi, commander of human space forces, studied tactical reports in her command center aboard the warship Inchin's Thunder. The Galactic Council had deployed fleets to enforce their blockade of human space, but their ships were having problems. "Report," she ordered her intelligence officer. "The Council fleets are confused, ma'am," Lieutenant Namjoon replied, trying not to smile. "They're following Engagement Protocol 43, which requires them to maintain formation and advance in a straight line toward enemy positions. And our people? Captain Park Woo's squadron hit their supply convoy yesterday, from behind, while they were sleeping. The Council Admiral sent a formal complaint that we're not fighting fair." Song Mi did smile at that. "Fair according to who? Their 3,000-year-old rule book?" "That's exactly what he said, ma'am. Quote, civilized warfare follows established patterns. Surprise attacks during rest periods violate the honor of combat. Did we respond?" Captain Park sent back a message. "War isn't honorable. If you want honor, don't start wars." The truth was the Galactic Council had no idea how to fight humans. Their military doctrine was based on formal battles between equally matched fleets, with advance warning and carefully planned engagements. Human tactics were built around doing whatever worked, regardless of what the rulebook said. When Council ships formed traditional battle lines, humans attacked from above and below. When Council fleets advanced according to protocol, humans retreated, regrouped, and hit them from unexpected directions. When Council admirals demanded formal surrender, humans ignored them and kept fighting. But the real war wasn't being fought with weapons. It was being fought with ideas. Dr. Jiang Ri, the human psychologist who had spent months studying alien cultures, made a disturbing discovery while analyzing captured Council communications. She called an emergency meeting with Admiral Lee Jun and the senior staff. "The Codex isn't just a set of laws," she explained, spreading holographic documents across the conference table. "It's a control system. Look at these psychological profiles of Council species." The document showed disturbing patterns. Species that had followed the Codex for generations showed reduced creativity, decreased problem-solving ability, and increased dependence on authority figures. Their populations were stable but stagnant. Their technology advanced slowly. Their art followed rigid patterns. Their people lived long, peaceful, empty lives. "They're not following the Codex by choice anymore," Jiang Ri continued. "They're following it because they've forgotten how to make choices. The ethereals didn't just conquer the galaxy 3,000 years ago. They lobotomized it." Admiral Lee Jun studied the data with growing horror. "You're saying the Council species can't think for themselves?" "Some can. The younger generations, mostly, and individuals who've had contact with us. But entire populations have lost the ability to question authority. They follow the Codex the way addicts follow their addiction. They need it to function." "Then how do we fight that?" asked Yun Bin. "How do you wage war against a civilization that's forgotten how to live?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Tech specialist Namjoon, who had been quietly hacking Council systems for months, discovered something hidden deep in the sacred archives. The Codex wasn't the original law of the galaxy. It was a revision, created after the ethereals had conquered the original galactic civilization. "The first galactic confederation was like us," he announced excitedly. "Dozens of species working together, sharing ideas, changing and growing. The ethereals were just one species among many. But they were afraid." "Afraid of what?" Song Mi asked. "Evolution. Progress, change. They saw other species advancing beyond them and they couldn't handle it. So they rewrote history. They made the Codex seem ancient and sacred, and they convinced everyone that following it was the only way to survive." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Galactic Council wasn't an ancient, wise civilization. It was the remnant of a conquered galaxy, still following the orders of their long-dead conquerors. "We have to tell them," Kim Hana said finally. "All of them. Every species in the galaxy. They deserve to know the truth. The Council will never allow that." warned Yang Tai. "They'll destroy us before they let us spread this information." Li Jun looked around the table at his officers, then at the alien representatives who had become friends and allies. Outside the conference room, humans and aliens worked together, laughed together, solved problems together. The galaxy the ethereals had tried to prevent was already being born. "Then we'd better move fast," he said. "Namjoon, can you break into the Council's main communication system?" The young hacker grinned. "Sir, I've been waiting for you to ask me that for months." "Do it. Send this information to every world, every ship, every person in the galaxy. Let them decide for themselves what to do with it." As Namjoon's fingers flew across his keyboard, preparing to shatter 3,000 years of lies, Yoon-bin looked out at the stars and wondered what the galaxy would look like when the truth finally set it free. In his private chamber, High Arbiter Quinlos felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy of species openly defying the Codex. Worse, they were working together, forming new alliances based not on ancient treaties but on mutual respect and shared goals. The contamination was spreading faster than he had imagined possible. Soon it would be too late to contain. "Prepare the final fleet," he ordered his subordinates. "If we cannot restore order through isolation, we will restore it through elimination. The humans and their allies must be destroyed before their chaos consumes everything." The war for the galaxy's future was about to begin. The largest fleet in galactic history moved through space like a metal tide. 3,000 ships from the Galactic Council's core worlds, armed with weapons that had kept the peace for millennia. At their head flew the massive dreadnought Eternal Order, commanded by High Arbiter Quinlos himself. "All vessels maintain formation," Quinlos broadcast to his fleet. "We will advance to the human station and demand surrender. If they refuse, we will implement final protocol and cleanse this contamination from the galaxy forever." The fleet moved in perfect order, just as the Codex required. Each ship in its assigned position, following the exact course plotted by Central Command. It was a magnificent display of coordination and discipline, the kind of precise military operation that had made galactic war impossible for 3,000 years. Admiral Shin Q watched them coming from the bridge of his flagship, Busan's Defiance. The human fleet looked tiny in comparison, only 200 ships scattered across a wide area around New Seoul. But Shin Q wasn't worried about the numbers. He was worried about what this battle would cost in lives on both sides. "They're following Attack Formation 7, reported his tactical officer. "Textbook approach. They'll be in firing range in 6 hours. Any response to our communication attempts?" "Nothing, sir." "They're not interested in talking." Shin Q nodded grimly. He had hoped the council would at least try to negotiate, but Quinlos had made his intentions clear. This wasn't a battle for territory or resources. It was a war between two completely different ideas about how civilized beings should live. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Execute Plan Chaos." Across human space, the fleet scattered like frightened birds. Ships that had been in loose formation suddenly accelerated in different directions, some diving toward planets, others climbing toward the system's outer edge, still others simply disappearing into hyperspace. Within minutes, the organized human fleet had become a cloud of individual ships moving in seemingly random patterns. On the Eternal Order, Quinlos studied the tactical display with confusion. "What are they doing? Where is their battle formation?" "Unknown, High Arbiter," replied his tactical officer, a nervous Zenthari named Dexlon. "They appear to be retreating, but not in any organized pattern. Cowards," spat Counselor Veltar, who had insisted on joining the battle to witness humanity's destruction. "They run like frightened animals." But Quinlos wasn't so sure. He had studied human military records, and humans didn't run from fights. They were reckless, chaotic, unpredictable, but they weren't cowards. This had to be some kind of trick. He was right. The first attack came from a direction no military manual had ever considered, straight up from the system's star. Captain Park Woo's squadron had been hiding in the solar corona, using the star's radiation to mask their heat signatures. When they emerged, they were moving faster than any ship in the Council fleet. "Impossible," Dexlon gasped. "No ship can survive in a star's corona." "Human ships can." Park Woo's voice crackled over the communication system as his fighters tore through the Council's rear guard. "We don't build them to last forever. We build them to do impossible things. The attack lasted only minutes, but it destroyed a dozen council ships and damaged twice as many. Before the fleet could respond, Park Woo's squadron had vanished back into hyperspace, leaving chaos in their wake. "Pursue them," Veltar shrieked. "Maintain formation and pursue." "No," Quinlos said coldly. "We follow the Codex, we maintain course and formation. Their tricks cannot defeat proper military discipline." But the tricks were just beginning. The second attack came from the asteroid belt, where human engineers had been working for months. What the Council thought were normal space rocks suddenly lit up with engines and weapons. The asteroids themselves had been turned into ships, crude but effective mobile weapons platforms that emerged from hiding to attack the Council's flanks. "How many ships do they have?" Texlan asked desperately, watching the tactical display fill with new contacts. "Unknown," Quinlos replied, but his voice was no longer confident. "Maintain formation. Trust in the Codex." The third attack was the worst. It came from inside the Council fleet itself. Dr. Jiang Ri had spent months studying Council psychology, and she had discovered something important. Not all of them wanted to be there. The crews of many Council ships were terrified, confused, and angry about being forced to attack former trading partners and friends. They followed orders because that's what they had always done, but they didn't understand why, so the humans gave them a choice. "This is Admiral Shin Q to all Council fleet personnel," his voice broadcast on all frequencies. "We don't want to fight you. We don't want to hurt you. We just want you to be free to make your own decisions about how to live." The message paused, then continued more softly. "If you don't want to be part of this war, just stop shooting. Turn off your weapons and head home. No one will chase you. No one will punish you. You have the right to choose." For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, ships began to break formation. It started with a single Velkari cruiser whose captain simply shut down his weapons and turned away from the battle. Then a Morden destroyer followed. Then an entire squadron of Zenthari fighters. "Traitors," Veltar screamed. "Cowards! Return to formation immediately." But more ships were leaving. Some sent messages of support to the humans. Others just silently powered down their weapons and drifted away from the battle. A few even changed sides completely, moving to join the human fleet. "Stop them," Veltar demanded. "Fire on the deserters." "No," Quinlos said firmly. "We do not fire on our own people. That is not the way of order. Then how do we win this battle?" Quinlos studied the tactical display. His perfect fleet was falling apart. Hundreds of ships had broken formation or left entirely. The remainder were spread out, confused, and demoralized. The humans had turned his greatest strength, the unity of the Codex, into a weakness. "We implement Final Protocol," he said quietly. Final Protocol was the Codex's last resort, a weapon so terrible that it had never been used. Hidden in the core of the Eternal Order was a device that could destroy entire star systems, turning suns into supernovas and planets into dust. It was meant to be used only if the very existence of galactic civilization was threatened. "Sir?" Dexlan said nervously. "Final Protocol requires unanimous consent from the full Council. We don't have—" "The Council is compromised," Quinlos interrupted. "Half our members have been infected by human chaos. I am implementing emergency authority." His hands moved across the control panel, beginning the activation sequence. "If we cannot save the galaxy from contamination, we will save it from chaos. The human system will be destroyed. Their allies will see what happens to those who abandon order." On New Sol, alarms began blaring as sensors detected the massive energy buildup on the Council flagship. Tech specialist Nam Jun's face went white as he analyzed the readings. "Admiral," he called to Li Jun. "They're charging some kind of super weapon. Energy levels are off the charts. If that thing fires, how long do we have?" 20 minutes until full charge. Once it's ready, they can destroy our entire star system." Li Jun felt cold. He had expected a battle, not genocide. "Can we stop it?" "The ship's shields are too strong. We need to get something inside their defenses, close enough to disrupt the weapon directly. A suicide mission." "Yes, sir." Before Li Jun could respond, Captain Park Woo's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral, I volunteer. My ship is fast enough to get through their defenses." "Denied," Li Jun replied immediately. "I won't ask anyone to throw their life away." "You're not asking," Park Woo said calmly. "I'm volunteering. Someone has to do it, and I'm the best pilot we have." "I'm going with him," announced Engineer Choi Dana. Someone needs to place the charges precisely, and I know their ship designs better than anyone. Me too, added Dr. Jiang Ri. If we're going to stop this madness, someone needs to reach their crew, make them understand what they're really doing. One by one, volunteers stepped forward, humans and aliens alike, all willing to risk their lives to stop a weapon that would destroy millions of innocent people. In the end, 23 beings from 7 different species crowded into Park Wu's modified fighter, determined to prove that courage wasn't limited to any one race. As they flew toward the Eternal Order, dodging weapons fire and enemy fighters, Dr. Jiang Ri broadcast a message to the Council ship's crew. "This is Dr. Jiang Ri of the Human Federation," she said. "I know you think you're saving the galaxy, but you're not. You're about to murder billions of innocent people, who only crime is wanting to choose their own path in life." Her voice was calm, but urgent. "The codex you follow wasn't written by wise ancestors. It was written by conquerors who wanted to keep you enslaved. You don't have to follow it anymore. You can choose to be free." On the Eternal Order, crew members began to look at each other with confusion and doubt. Some had never heard the truth about the codex's origins. Others had suspected but never dared to speak their doubts aloud. Dexlan, the Zenthari tactical officer, was the first to act. "High Arbiter," he said quietly. "Perhaps we should reconsider. The weapon seems excessive." "The Codex demands order," Quinlos replied, but his voice lacked its usual certainty. "The Codex demands many things," Dexlan said, growing bolder. Captain Park Wu's ship clung to the hull of the Eternal Order like a parasite, its cutting tools burning through the massive dreadnought's armor. Inside the Council flagship, chaos was spreading faster than any weapon. 2 minutes to weapon discharge, announced the ship's computer in its emotionless voice, but half the crew was no longer listening to orders. Dr. Jiang Ri's broadcast had done more than inform them about the truth. It had given them permission to think for themselves. For the first time in their lives, beings who had followed the Codex without question were asking, "Is this right?" Dexlan, the Zenthari tactical officer, made a decision that would have been impossible an hour earlier. He quietly accessed his control panel and began shutting down weapon systems. "What are you doing?" Counselor Veltar shrieked when he noticed the tactical displays going dark. "I'm thinking," Dexlan replied calmly. "Something you told me never to do." Across the ship, other crew members were making their own choices. A Velkari engineer stopped the charging sequence for 30 seconds before her commander noticed. A Morden communications officer began broadcasting surrender terms to the human fleet. A Kethran pilot unlocked the hangar bays so repair crews could escape if the weapon exploded. High Arbiter Quinlos watched his perfect, orderly crew dissolve into chaos and felt something crack inside his ancient mind. "You are destroying everything," he screamed at Dexlan. 3,000 years of peace. 3,000 years of order. 3,000 years of slavery, Dexlan replied quietly. "I'm tired of being a slave." Engineer Choi Dana and her team had finally burned through the hull and were racing through the ship's corridors toward the weapon's core. They met no resistance. Most of the security forces had abandoned their posts to help evacuate non-essential personnel, but the weapon was still charging. Even with half the crew in rebellion, the automated systems continued their countdown. 1 minute to discharge, the computer announced. Dana reached the weapon core and stared at the massive device that could turn stars into bombs. It was a work of genius and madness. Technology so advanced that it seemed like magic, but every machine had weaknesses and Dana had spent her life finding them. "Here," she told her team, pointing to a cluster of power conduits. "If we overload these circuits, the weapon will backfire, but..." She paused, calculating. "The explosion will destroy the ship and everything within 1,000 kilometers." Dr. Yang Ri looked around at the mixed group of humans and aliens who had volunteered for this mission. "We knew it might come to this." "Wait," called a voice from behind them. It was Dexlan, who had left his post to find them. "There might be another way." He pointed to a different set of controls. "If we reverse the polarity on the main power core, the weapon will shut down safely. But someone has to do it manually from the bridge." "That's suicide too," Park Wu pointed out. "Quinlos will never let anyone near those controls." "He might," said a new voice. Kex Mora, the Zenthari rebel leader, stepped out of the shadows with a dozen other aliens. "If he's busy dealing with us." What happened next would be remembered as the first truly free action in galactic history. beings from 8 different species, working together not because a law told them to, but because they chose to. On the bridge, Quinlos found himself surrounded by his own crew. They weren't attacking him. Violence wasn't in their nature after millennia of peaceful conditioning. But they weren't obeying him either. "Stand down," he ordered. "Return to your posts." "The weapon must fire. Why?" asked a young Valkyrie communications officer. "Why must millions die?" Because the Codex demands it." "The Codex is wrong," Dexland said simply. "We don't have to follow it anymore." For the first time in 3,000 years, the highest authority in galactic civilization faced beings who refused to obey simply because he commanded it. Quinlos felt his worldview crumbling. Without absolute obedience to the Codex, what was left? 30 seconds to discharge. In the weapon core, Dana made her decision. "I'm not letting billions of people die because one old alien can't admit he's wrong." She reached for the manual override controls. "Wait." Dexland's voice came over the communication system. "I'm at the bridge controls. I can reverse the polarity from here." "You'll be killed," Dana warned. "Maybe, but I've been dead for a long time already. At least this way I get to choose how I live my last moments." On the bridge, Dexland's hands moved across the control panel, reversing 3,000 years of unquestioned obedience with the touch of a button. Quinlos lunged toward him, trying to stop the shutdown sequence, but other crew members held him back, gently, but firmly. 10 seconds to discharge. The weapon core began to whine as its power flow reversed. Energy meant to destroy a star was redirected back into the ship's systems, overloading them in a cascade of sparks and smoke. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The eternal order went dark. Every light, every engine, every weapon system shut down as the superweapon's energy dispersed harmlessly into space. In the sudden silence, beings throughout the ship could hear something they hadn't heard in millennia. The sound of their own heartbeats, free from the rhythm of absolute obedience. Dexland looked at his hands, amazed that he was still alive. Around him, his fellow crew members stared at each other in wonder. They had disobeyed direct orders, violated the sacred codex, and committed what should have been the ultimate sin, and the galaxy hadn't ended. In the hours that followed, as rescue ships arrived and the Eternal Order was safely evacuated, a new kind of communication spread across the galaxy, not the formal broadcasts of the Council, but personal messages between friends, family members, and strangers who suddenly realized they had more in common than their species had ever taught them. On New Sol, Admiral Lee Jun received surrender messages from 80% of the Council fleet. The remaining ships simply left, their crews no longer willing to fight for a cause they didn't understand. High Arbiter Quinlos, rescued from his darkened flagship, was brought to the human station not as a prisoner but as a guest. He sat in the conference room where 36 species were gathered, watching them argue, laugh, disagree, and somehow find solutions together. "I don't understand," he said to Dr. Kim Hana, who was trying to help him process what had happened. "Without the Codex, without absolute order, how do you prevent chaos? How do you maintain peace?" Kim Hana smiled gently. "We don't prevent chaos. We embrace it. Chaos isn't the opposite of order. It's the source of growth. And we don't maintain peace by forcing everyone to be the same. We build peace by celebrating our differences and working together despite them. But without rules." "We have rules," interrupted Ambassador Yun Bin, who was working with representatives from 37 species to draft a new galactic charter. "But our rules serve us. We don't serve them. When a rule doesn't work, we change it. When we discover something new, we adapt." Over the following months, the galaxy transformed in ways no one had imagined. The rigid hierarchies of the Council dissolved as species began governing themselves. Trade flourished as beings were free to create new technologies and share new ideas. Art, music, literature, and science exploded in a renaissance of creativity that made the previous 3 millennia look like a dark age. Not everything was perfect. Some species struggled with the concept of choice after so many generations of following orders. Some individuals couldn't handle the responsibility of thinking for themselves. Some worlds chose to maintain versions of the old ways, preferring stability to growth. But that was okay too, because choice meant the right to choose differently. The new Galactic Confederation was built on a simple principle that humans had brought from their small blue world. People have the right to make their own mistakes and find their own solutions. Laws should protect this right, not restrict it. Government should serve its citizens, not control them. And no rule, no matter how old or sacred, should be above questioning. 5 years after the first human ship had arrived at the council station, Dr. Kim Hana stood in the same chamber where they had been told to submit or be exiled. But now the chamber was full of voices, dozens of species debating the latest amendment to their living constitution. The sacred codex sat in a museum, a reminder of what happened when people stopped thinking for themselves. Her daughter, Su Jin, tugged at her sleeve. The little girl was half human, half Velkari, one of the first children born in the new galaxy where such partnerships were not just allowed but celebrated. "Mom," Su Jin asked, "why are they arguing so much?" Kim Hana smiled and picked up her daughter, looking out at the chaotic, noisy, beautiful mess of free beings trying to figure out how to live together. "Because they're learning how to be alive, sweetheart. And living things grow, and growing things change, and changing things make noise. Is it better than the quiet?" Kim Hana thought about the silent, sterile perfection of the old council, where 47 species sat in absolute stillness, following rules written by the dead. "Much better," she said. Outside the station, ships from 100 different worlds came and went in patterns that followed no protocol, except mutual respect and common purpose. The galaxy hummed with the sound of life, messy, chaotic, unpredictable, and absolutely free. Humanity had kept its promise. They hadn't followed the galaxy's rules. They had taught the galaxy to make its own.